Are you struggling to come up with original content week in and week out? Start a podcast. Interview your ideal clients, let them talk about what they care about most, and never run out of content ideas again. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show. Welcome back to B2B Growth. I'm your host for today's episode, Logan Lyles with Sweetfish Media. I'm joined today by Moshe Vaknin. He is the founder and CEO at YouAppi. Moshe, how are you doing today?
Oh, wonderful. Spring is around the corner. I feel great.
Oh, awesome. Well, it is great to connect with you. We're going to be talking about 3 things you need to keep in mind as you build a successful mobile business around your app. But before we jump into that, Moshe, I would love to hear from you a little bit about your background, what you and the team at YouAppi are up to these days, and why you're the one sharing on this topic for us today.
Great. Just a little bit about myself. I've been in the digital space almost 20 years. Since my first startup was really around the online rich media digital platform. And since then, I've launched another two startups around mobile. I've launched YouAppi more than 7 years ago. And my concept was at that time, now maybe it's clear because we see everybody's using apps. But when YouAppi was founded, the apps economy has just really started to become a major part. And the reason and the vision was helping users to use apps in mobile on one hand, and on the other hand, to help mobile brands to grow their business in mobile the right way. I mean, like a lot of brands having apps and they don't know how to build a business in mobile. So that's when, obviously, that's why that this is really our vision.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you guys were definitely ahead of the curve a little bit. You know, Christopher Lochhead was on the show a while back talking about how Apple really redefined the category and the definition of a smartphone. And that really was the change in this device that you emailed, you texted, you sent messages and calls to something that was your gateway to all of these apps. So the fact that you guys were really jumping on board that growing wave, 7+ years ago, shows that you guys were forward thinking in this space and you have, learned some lessons along the way. And so I would love for you to dive into some specifics in that to share with listeners today. I know the first one that you believe is very key in this world of building a mobile business around your app is personalization. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, exactly. I think that's a good point, Logan. With personalization, mobile device is by its nature is personalized. Everyone has its own device, unlike a PC. It's yours all the time with you. So it's really something that you're very attached to it. All your life is into this device. So personalization is really key in the digital world. And marketers really like to use the users. So they're looking for the users. So all the users really move into mobile. They're moving to mobile, using more apps. So marketers are looking for them. And so personalizations, that's what YouAppi, part of our major core technology, is we believe you cannot just drive apps recommendation to users without understand the personal needs. So personalization is the key to engage with consumers. And that's what the platform that we've built really is trying to understand who are the users, what exactly they do, what they're looking for. And that's very critical. Therefore, the personalization is done really step over step. We're trying to understand the consumer's behavior, try to understand what they're looking for, their purchasing habits, and a lot of obviously functionalities that are related to the personal. So each personal really acts differently on a mobile. And that's why personalization is the key thing in part of our core technology.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One of the things, more on the sales side, I've been talking with a lot of folks recently about is, bad personalization. We've all seen bad personalization where either it's in email or a LinkedIn message that says, hi, Logan, see you work at Sweetfish Media. And really that's it. But with all of the data that you can collect via your app, you can go to a much better level of personalization, right? What are some of maybe the good and bad of personalization that you've seen throughout your customer base and what you guys have been doing at YouAppi?
Yeah, you're right. This is a really good point. The question is, how do you gather data and how do you analyze data? Those are the two major things. At YouAppi, our data is really first-party data. We work with a lot of big apps that they have a huge amount of users, and we work with them very closely. And they share with us the data, which is really totally, we keep privacy. We don't know who is really the user. So the first step towards personalization is gathering data. You need to gather data relevant to users. And then you start, obviously, use our entire core platform, including artificial intelligence, machine learning, the predictive algorithms, to try to really understand exactly what do the users use the apps for. It can be start from, we have more than 60 parameters. Can be, do they usually use a Wi-Fi? Do they use a carrier? Location, obviously, it makes sense. Does this user love transportation? Do they like shopping? So when we gather all of this data and we start to build kind of a flow, how do we want to target the user? Okay, let's assume the user is really could be a good candidate for shopping. Then you start recommend them to use an app, let's say Amazon Shopping, etc. Then some of the users might react positively, some of them don't. So we are very cautious because we work with brand. We don't like really, we want to make sure the users get in front of the right content. So we will start a process of optimization. We'll obviously recommend them use an Amazon, let's say Amazon Shopping app, but then if they'll buy, that's fine. Then we'll recommend them how to use it. But if we see the users are reluctant to some apps, we'll obviously optimize and drive them other apps. So the process of recommendations, this is the key thing part of our data. So gathering data, analyze the data, and then recommend the users to obviously download an app and install the app that match to exactly their needs. So that's combined so many algorithms part of the core technology. So to drive the right app to the user. If you drive the wrong app to the user, obviously you can lose the user, you can damage your brand that you work for, and obviously there's no way this user ever can come back to your app. That's what, by the way, sometimes there's a really significant retention with a lot of users downloading apps and don't use them. Use them maybe once and that's it. But however, if you're able to target those users with things that they are needful, and they have more data to define it, there are very good chances that these users will be a long-term users for the brand. That's why your app is so strong in ROI and KPI for the big brands to ensure that the retention is really kept high over time. And that's the big challenge. Drive, recommend apps, and make sure KPI is met for the advertisers so retention and the churn can be really reduced. So that's the key thing of our technology.
Yeah. So merging, that data to really get very personalized, make the right recommendations, like Netflix is doing for all of us as we binge our favorite shows and find new ones. What have you found as some of the ways in which, brands can make that recommendation? Are there do's and don'ts once you are recommending the right app to the right person at the right time? Are there some pitfalls there where brands are not presenting it in the right way or seeing some drop off there early, even when they are targeting the right person?
Exactly. It's so critical when brands, first of all, brands, they like to see really minimal trial and error. There's a lot of trial and error, by the way, when you use a recommendation technology. You might think that some group of users, they like to see, let's say, a transportation app. Then you start this process. Now, if you don't have an appropriate technology, you will not be able to optimize it to make sure that the next time user come, he will see the app that is more appropriate and match to that user. So one of the things we've seen some brands, if they don't use a good technology to help them to do this matching, obviously it drives them a lot of unhappy users, and that's increase the churn and increase the ROI spend, which is something you want to prevent. So therefore, it's so important to use technology because the advertiser has a clear ROI. They know how much a user costs them. So they want to make sure they reach the ROI. And to reach that ROI by obviously recommending an app for the user to install, it's a very critical. There should be no waste of impressions on users that you might think they will not can become customers. So we are not anymore just about users downloading apps. It's more about consumers. How do you make users to consumers? And to do that, that's what really makes us and differentiate us apart from some of our competitors is really technology, and over time be able to optimize and drive this right app to the right user. This matching will drive the absolute needed KPI by the advertiser.
All right, today's growth story is about search engine marketing. Clear Company is an HR tech company that was doing a lot of things right. Their messaging was clear, their product produced incredible results, but they were struggling to drive qualified traffic to their website. Then they found Directive Consulting, a B2B search marketing agency. Within the first 12 months of working with Directive, Clear Company was able to increase their qualified lead volume by 157%. I have a hunch that Directive can get these kind of results for you too. So head over to directiveconsulting.com and request a totally free custom proposal. That's directiveconsulting.com. All right, let's get back to this interview.
So, Moshe, we've talked about personalization. We've talked about the use of data. The third factor that I know you want to touch on that brands need to keep in mind as they try to grow adoption of their app is globalization. Tell us a little bit about where that comes into play here as we round out the conversation.
Exactly. I think, that's exactly something that's very unique about mobile apps. A lot of apps are global, and that's the direction that big brands are investing. Let's say Twitter as an app, they want to go into, so they might be big in USA, but they want to be big also in Brazil. They want to be big in Japan, some other territories. So globalization is the key thing for apps. Therefore, they have to adjust all their marketing strategy to in order to attract global audience. So there will be different campaigns for users in Brazil compared to users in the USA or users in Japan. So they have to adopt different marketing, obviously, approach how to acquire users. Globalization is really must and key thing, and for every big app. Unlike online apps, I mean, you can use an app, you can live in Vietnam, and you can use an app that has been developed in Singapore, because you don't know really where all they come from. So apps by nature become global, because when you go and search for, let's say, travel app, you get an app from somebody who developed an amazing app. You go and obviously use that app. So globalization is the key, and it helps for brands to scale their business, to become global, obviously, and enhance their brands and scale their business. So that's very ideal for big brands to invest from start, from their build a business to really go look for global and not to stay within the same country.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's where a lot of that data can really come into play and help brands leverage that with all of the nuances that come in breaking into new markets internationally. I love that you're bringing that around full circle and giving us the full picture as you look to grow user adoption of your brand's app, Moshe. If anybody listening to this would like to stay connected with you or ask any follow-up questions on this topic or anything else, especially in the mobile space, as you guys have so much experience there, what would be the best way for them to reach out or stay connected with you?
Best really, they can approach me using my LinkedIn through Moshe Vaknin at YouAppi LinkedIn, or my email moshe@youappi.com.
I love it. Moshe, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you so much, Logan, for your time, and I hope the listeners will enjoy it.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big Three, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.